So when evaluating functions, we plug in the input value into the equation and simplify. This can be more of a challenge when it is time to simplify than it is when it's time to plug in. So for this first example, f part A, we have the function f of x equals 2 over x minus 3. We want to evaluate f of negative 1/4. That negative 1/4 is taking place of the x inside the parentheses, so we're going to put it anywhere there's an x. So for f of negative 1/4, we will have 2 over a negative 1/4 minus 3. When plugging in, you may want to keep that x value in parentheses no matter where you put it. And that way you won't get confused as to whether it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division, what you need to do with that value. So one of the things we can do here to simplify this expression is to get rid of that fraction within a fraction. So we can multiply the top and bottom by this denominator of 4. So if we multiply the top by 4 and the bottom by 4, remember we have to distribute. So everybody in the denominator and the numerator will get multiplied by that 4. So in the top, 2 times 4 gives us 8. In the denominator, when we distribute 4 times a negative 1/4, the 4s will reduce, and we're left with a negative 1. And then 4 times the negative 3 would give us a negative 12. So f of negative 1/4 would give us a negative 8/13. Now for B, we have f of x equals a negative 5x squared, and we want to evaluate at f of x plus h. So that means we're plugging in an entire binomial for that x squared. So f of x plus h equals a negative 5 times the entire quantity x plus h squared. Remember that when we have a binomial squared, we would what a lot of people call FOIL, but basically you distribute x plus h times x plus h, and that is where we would get that negative 5 times x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. We're not done yet because we haven't simplified. We want to distribute that negative 5. So we get negative 5x squared minus 10xh minus 5h squared. Now let's talk about interpreting functions. This is where a lot of people start to panic. The key is to determine what all of the variables equal and what each represent, including their units. Now the units is what comes after. Is it in feet, in dollars? Is it in turtles like we did earlier? So let's look at example G. Suppose the cost in dollars of producing X units of adapters is given by this function. What I like to do is take a look at how they are describing each of those variables. So I know they're giving us the C or C of X. Remember, they're the same thing. That is cost and it's in dollars. So when we talk about it, we need to either use the dollar sign or use the word dollars. And then it also says producing X units of adapters. So that means that our X represents the number of adapters. So you can always write yourself kind of a little key. This will help you in interpreting. So they're asking us to first find and interpret C of 85. If it's C of X, that's telling us that we have 85 adapters, and they're asking us to find the cost in dollars. So to find C of 85, we plug in 85 everywhere there's an X. So if we plug in that 85, we will end up getting 33,667.3. We have now found the C value, so we can say it will cost $33,667.30 to produce 85 adapters. Again, the 85 adapters was what was given for our X, and the $33,667.30 is what we found for our C. So notice we did put the dollar sign by the 33,000, and we changed that 0.3 to 0.30 because the cents part is always to 2 decimal places. In part B, it says determine the cost of producing 55 adapters. In this example, they did not give it to us in function notation. So we have to determine what are they giving us. 55 adapters is still giving us the X value, asking us to find the cost or the C in dollars. So this is still asking us to find C of 55 adapters. So this time when we plug in 55 for X, we get 33,475.9. This is our cost. Another way we can write the same interpretation would be when we produce 55 adapters, the cost will be $33,475.90. The key to the interpretation isn't necessarily the order, just make sure that you have the correct units with the correct value. Let's scroll down a little bit to look at what C is asking us. It says how many adapters can be produced if the cost is $33,546.08. So now they're asking us how many adapters. In other words, we don't know the value of X. But they're giving us the cost value of $33,546.08. So remember, our original equation is C of X equals 33,125 plus 6.38x. This time we don't know the X. They are giving us the C. This C value is the same as C of X. So you might want to write yourself a note. The Y is the function notation, C of X, which can also be represented just by the function value of C. So we're going to plug in that dollar amount for the entire left side. So now we have an equation that we have to solve. Let me scroll up again a little bit more so we have room. We are going to subtract the constant from both sides. So we get the 6.38x by itself. That equals the 421.08 after we subtract. And now that we're multiplying the 6.38 by x, we're going to undo that multiplication by dividing. And we get an x value of 66. So to interpret it, we can say we can produce 66 adapters at a cost of $33,546.08.